Hello, welcome to IBM Cloud Certification Series. This is the demo for scaling, section number 3.2 of Cloud Certification Series. I assume all the developers are familiar with Bluemix as of now, and you have your login and username and password that are available for you. Log into Bluemix, and if you don't have an app, don't worry. You can just go click on a boilerplate and add your app that you're going to create an app that you're going to add auto-scaling service for. So there is a boilerplate called Java Cache Web Starter. If you want to click on the boilerplate that is shown on the link, it'll go and take you to a screen that shows Liberty for Java, and there's also a data cache service that will be associated for you as a part of this boilerplate creation. And there will be a monitoring and analytics service also that will be created for you. So what I'm going to do now is give a name for this application, EcoD CNC Cert Certify Auto Scale. And once you give the name to it, there will be a host name associated with it. You can pick the type of plans that you want to allocate for your application. This is, as I said, we are going to configure an auto-scaling service later once you create an application via this boilerplate. I just clicked on create. This creates a sample Java app that will be tied to the data cache service and monitoring and analytics service. We're going to, once this application gets created, we're going to walk through the browser of the application and see if it's functional, then add an auto-scaling service to it. Now you can see the application is running. I'm going to click on the link and test the application, Java application. So I'm going to add EcoD one is the key, and the value is 35.1. And do the same thing to 2. So this tells me that this is a Java application that is created by the boilerplate and it is working. Now let's go back to the dashboard of Bluemix, and we will add an auto-scaling service to this by clicking on Add a Service or API. You can go browse through the services by going to DevOps, and you see auto-scaling services, or you can also do auto, and it should provide you with the auto-scaling service here. So I'm going to click on that, and this will ask me for an application to add this, which tells me the application is already selected here. I'm going to create click on create that adds the auto-scaling configuration to the Bluemix application that you're seeing. So when you add the service to your existing Bluemix Java or runtime app, it restages the application. The reason why it does is it basically installs an agent in the Java app and it also has a policy that you need to configure once the staging has been completed, which I'm going to walk through the next step. That will be implemented on the application that you're configuring the auto-scaling for. So let's wait for the application staging to complete and the application return back to the running mode, and we will configure the auto-scaling service. Okay, now it looks like the application is running, so I want to test my application after configuring the auto-scaling service to see whether it still holds the values that I created before. You can see that there's now. Let's go back to the dashboard and try to configure the auto-scaling service here. So click on the auto-scaling link here, and it should take you to the policy configuration. There is no policy that has been configured for the application. So what I'm going to do is show you how to create a scaling policy that can be executed on the application. So just click on the create enable auto scaling policies. Here, the first name of the policy is the name that you want to give. Let's say that as we want to measure a memory, so let's take Java memory policy. So we're going to give a name to the policy, and we're going to tell what are the minimum instances required for the application. For the application, here we added. You just said minimum number of instances for the application we created was 1, and we want to increase it to 5 based on the rule that is getting executed. So what is the rule? A rule is a parameter that is applied towards the application based on the metric type. A metric type, we can pick any metric types. In this case, we are going to select memory. You can also select the response time, throughput, or heap, JVM heap. It depends on which parameter your application is mostly using, or whatever. What are the best things for your application based on these 4 inputs that are being available. So in this case, we are going to pick memory, and we are going to. What do you mean by scale out? Scaling out means, let's say that we want to add more instances when an application reaches a certain percentage of memory utilization. You say that the default policy says that at 80%, increase the instance, add one more instance to the application. If the memory of a single instance it goes beyond 80% of its utilization, there will be one more instance added to the one more instance of application added to your app. Similarly, if you have a memory utilization of 30% or less than 30%, this auto scaling service automatically reduces or decreases the instances by 1, so that as there is not much volume on the application. So clicking on the advanced configuration, you see the statistics window that has what it's asking is how many seconds do you want to refresh on? What is the cooling period for scaling out? Let's say that I want to add one more instance. What is my cooldown period to add that? We are giving 600 seconds. Similarly, if you're talking about scaling in, the cooldown period for scaling in is same thing what we did for scaling out. The breach duration, so we can configure based on the application availability and the criteria you define for your app, and the breach duration, if with user utilization of 80% goes beyond a certain amount of time, it can, like let's say 600 seconds, it will go and increase an instance by 1. Or similarly, if you want to reduce, if it goes for 60 seconds below 30% of the time, then it's going to decrease one instance. So once you add these default rules, you can just leave it like that and add a default rule and click on save, which will give you an idea of, which will tell you this is how a scaling policy is being created, and you can see it says created here. Now go to the metric statistics and see how your configuration has been effective. So as we configured the application for memory utilization, you can see from 521 right now, from the time of the application creation till now, or when the auto scaling service is configured, we hit the application multiple times, right? Looking at that, you can clearly see the memory usage went above a certain amount of scenario. So if you want to do a load test to increase the threshold by pumping in more requests for this application, when the application goes beyond 80%, you'll see an instance spike you'll see the instances 0 or 1 being added as soon as it goes beyond a threshold. If it goes below a threshold for a certain amount of time, seconds, it goes down. So for example, in this case, our application is here, and you can clearly tell that there are 2 values here. let's say I'm going to add one more echo D3, and you can see the usage getting increased there. And this is the use of metric stats that's been showing here. Similarly, you can look at the scaling history, let's say in the past 1 year or past month, if you want to see how many instances have been scaled up or down, how many instances have been added or deleted, you can see them there. My scaling history, this is how an auto-scaling service helps you add an instance and reduce an instance or decrease an instance based on the application utilization parameters, and all the load balancing capabilities are all provided by Bluemix, or Bluemix in this case, using that service. That is auto-scaling in Bluemix. Let's talk about manual scaling of your application. So there are two things that you're going to look at when you talk about manual scaling. One is memory quota, and the other is instances. Memory quota mainly, if you're looking at it from a type of scaling perspective, it is vertical scaling. You can increase your memory quota for that container to any number, basically based on your application usage. But this has to be done manually, and I think that is one of the key reasons why auto-scaling is preferred, and that is mostly used in Bluemix too. You can increase the number of instances based on your application usage. Particularly if you know an application has a transaction volume that goes beyond a certain amount by 6 o'clock in the evening, you can have a system admin or an operator go and tune these instances, go and increase the number of instances to 6 and restart the application. That is another way of doing scaling in Bluemix. These are two types of scaling that can be done manually in Bluemix. So it's always better to use auto-scaling service for your application, because this reduces the cost, and it's free service that is offered in Bluemix, and it helps you scale based on the configuration and policy parameters that you already defined.